Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us. This is the Speaking from Experience series from Office Practicum, and I'm Sue Kressly, the Medical Director for OP, and I have over 30 years of experience in clinical practice as an independent pediatrician. And with me today is Alisa Vaughn, the VP of Operations for OP, and she's got more than a decade of experience as a practice administrator for a pediatric practice and some subject matter expertise. So again, thanks for joining us. Today, Alisa, you and I are going to discuss balancing illness spread and practice need in this time that we're facing in the months ahead through the winter and into the spring. And I'd like to sort of discuss three pieces of this, if you will. I want to start with the physician clinical provider aspects of how we're going to sort of work through this. Then move on to the office team, which you're gonna lead because I need a supporting team in order to see patients. And then we're gonna close up with the patients because I think patients and families at the center are really the most important. So let's get to it.
It's going to be a tough topic, so it'll be interesting to see what we come up with as we're talking, because this, I think all of 2020 has been unprecedented grounds. And I think with flu and COVID about to combine and hit us all, right? We're going to need flexibility and communication more than ever, and really have some scrappy, creative ideas as we come out and come out of the summer and into the winter months. So I think this is timely, Sue. So thanks for hopping on with me this morning.
Yeah, and I have to first start by saying those of us who like to control things and have a little OCD checklist, like we're gonna have to get zen and just say, can't do it, I'm okay, change is okay, I'll be all right. So let's start with providers. And what I wanna talk about first is, I think that physicians especially have this culture of, I have to come to work no matter how I feel. Case in point, in pediatric residency, I got rotavirus. And I remember being in the on-call room with one of my fellow residents giving me IV fluids so I could stand up and go see patients. Now, the infectious control people were probably screaming at us, but there is a culture of you always go to work to take care of others who are sick. But I don't think that we can do that this year because it's not going to be fair to our team members and our patients. Agreed?
Agree. And it's no wonder. I mean, even in private practice, Sue, it's not only that the ethical, right? I need to be here. I need to be here for my patients. My patients are depending on me. But in private practice, you've also got that economic impact, in the background. So there's so many reasons why we've created that culture for physicians to show up to work when they're not feeling well. But I think this year, you're right, we're going to have to set a culture where we're all psychologically okay and empowered to say, I have a fever, I'm not well, I can't come to work. And what are we going to do when that happens, right? It's happened in the past, but to your point, I think it happened a lot less often. I know in my practice, I did have providers call out from time to time, and there is that contingency plan that has to happen. But I think now more than ever, we've got to empower people to know that it's okay and we got your back.
Not only is it okay, it's the right thing to do.
So that's a better point. Yep.
So I think having a conversation, putting all of your clinical providers in a room and pretending you're in the exit seat of the airplane. Okay. In the case of an emergency, I need a yes, saying that if I'm unwell, I will let you know and not come to work. Do you agree? Yes, go down the line. And so I think it starts there. I think the second piece of this is that we have to decide that we're all going to have to be there, and we are truly a team to care for patients and care for our business. And that's going to take every team player, but we don't all have the same competing abilities or needs at home and other places. So let's lay them all out on the table. Like, if I need you to do telehealth, what can you possibly give me? If I need you at the last minute to cover for someone who's calling out sick, Like, what are your deal breakers? You can't come Wednesday because you take your mother-in-law to chemotherapy. Yep, I'm not going there. But like, for me, like the empty nester who doesn't have to do distance learning kids, like I'm a little more flexible. And maybe there's docs who are only administration or retirement who you pull out of telehealth. That might be me, right? This year, right? You pull out of telehealth, but you should know everybody's capability in a judgment-free way up front to know how you can pivot. Does that sound like something, as an office administrator, you would be willing to lead that conversation with me?
Oh yeah, it's absolutely necessary, right? And then again, that relationship and partnership between physician and management is critical. But I think another point, when you talk about I'm a little more flexible, I may not have distance learning, I may not have those hard no's in place, is when we were talking on another series, this is not going to be fair and equitable in all situations because we all are in different places, and creating a culture where we know that and we're able to lean in and support each other to support our patients, knowing that it's not going to be an equitable burden across the board because we all are in different situations. I think it'll be interesting, Sue, and I think a lot of practices have already really seen their culture be put to test. We're going to see that again this fall in flu and COVID. But this is the time to really see who your key player and your champions in your practice are. If they are begrudging another employee because they have a mother-in-law that lives with them in the house who's going through chemo or tested positive for COVID and they can't come to work, are we going to punish that individual team member because of their circumstance?
We're going to lift them up and support them.
We're going to lift them up and support them. And if we have those individuals in the practice that do not, do we really want them a part of our culture? And this is the time, right, to really be assessing this. So it'll be interesting.
It may also be the time to take out your vision and mission statement and see if it still resonates. And and if you don't have one, this is the time to build one, right? So that everybody, when push comes to shove, you point them back to there and say, what are we supposed to do when this happens? We are a team that supports each other in order to care for patients in our practice. Okay, are you supporting that culture? So let's segue to office team members, right? Because I can't see patients without a supporting cast, right? And all I want to know, and most pediatricians want to know when they come in the morning is, Alisa, you got what I need? I'm ready to dig in. Do I have my supporting cast? So tell me what that looks like, because the same thing's going to happen to them. They're going to be out, their kids may be back in school hybrid, and then that kid's classroom gets closed for 2 weeks because somebody's positive, or that kid gets flu and the mom can't even work remotely, needs to stay home. So tell me operationally what that looks like and how you're going to make the physicians, especially the practice owners, feel confident that we got this.
Yeah, so I had mentioned earlier talking about a lot of scrappy ideas and creativities come out of this. And I think we're going to have to apply that same mentality and positivity to situations like this. So most well-run practices already have contingency plans in place for when an unexpected provider illness or staff illness happens. We talk a lot about cross-training, right? That's a fundamental that we should be doing. You and I have talked about that in our Speaking from Experience series. Prior to this, cross-training is so important. You had also mentioned at one time that the huddle is super important during COVID. I think now the huddle is going to be even more important, but what we may need to do is be more creative and do a pre-huddle huddle. And when we're talking to staff, the conversation you mentioned having with providers, are you in? Are you in? Are you in? Can I get a yes? Are we going to lean in together on this? That same conversation needs to be had with the entire support team. So, for example, you may need to consider a group text every morning, and everybody knows that they're going to get a group text in the morning that says, is everybody on board today? Just send me a thumbs up. If your office opens at 8 o'clock, you may need to plan for doing that at 7. Most people are up and getting ready an hour before they come into work, or may even be commuting in some situations. So a quick thumbs up, everybody's in, then we can relay to the providers that morning. We have a full team here and we're prepared for the day. If we don't have a full team, if we do have someone that's going to be able to call out, right, that gives you the opportunity to sit down with the employees they're going to be covering and say, what's our strategy going to be?
And what are our priorities today? Maybe we don't
what today,
right?
Right. Sorry, cell phone. Yeah. What are they going to be today? And that's important. And I'm saying today because today may be different than tomorrow. So how are we going to work on this together? You may need to huddle the team and say, you know, Josie's out today and she was covering Dr. Kressly. Dr. Kressly has a full schedule team. So what's our strategy going to be? Who's going to own what pieces to make sure that Dr. Kressly's supported?
And I will say the providers have to say, if you can't be waiting at your desk for someone to room a patient. No. Everybody's got to pitch in. The physician culture starts from the top saying, I got this. Let me tap the phone, it's ringing. This cord of everybody leans in, helps each other. There is no elevated position that says I don't do that, right? Like, no. Sorry, I clean up, throw up in my office if it happens and I'm the person who's free. So
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I think really, I mean, the long and short of it is communication is always important for quality and timely patient care. But I think now more than ever when these situations come up, you had mentioned planning. And what I think is also important is that when we're doing our provider schedules, typically, now I may have been an outlier in my practice, we would open our schedule up for like 6 months or more. Some practices do 3 months. You may need to consider, right, not opening your schedule as far in advance, because what I don't want to happen, what I don't want to see practices do is take one bad day and then make a knee-jerk reaction and change their schedule for 3 months, because we're not know what November looks like at the beginning of October, because it is going to change. The pace is going to change. Illness may rise, it may fall, right? But being flexible is key here, and communicating, doing those pre-huddles. It's going to be a combination of things that's going to get us through this.
So what do you think about the strategy that hospitals use for like nurseries and maternity, where there's always this flowing up and go, like there's no babies or everyone's delivering at the same time, and they pay staff to be on call for a period, and if they get called in, what do you think about that strategy? And then how do you budget for that? Because we're probably going to have some overtime and some undertime and all that sort of stuff.
Well, I think it's a very good strategy, and I think it's a strategy we should be doing in a pre-COVID environment anyway, right? Multi-provider practices, as you mentioned, right? Not every provider will be in the office that day. So we incentivize, right? Just know you may be on call. We'll call you in by 10 a.m. If Dr. Kressly calls out, here's your incentive, you'll need to come in. But we might need to do the same with our team members, our support team members. We may need to extend office hours. We may need to do telehealth at night. And we may need to plan and budget for overtime. And in some situations, especially if we have team members who are running lean and doing the job of 2, they may be working 12-hour days, and there's going to be overtime that can't be controlled as it would be in a normal environment, right? Typically, we look at our overtime, we control it, we incentivize everybody to get done on time, we can get out of the office. That just may not be the story today. So I think creative budgeting and paying attention to that overtime and reporting on it, and the why, right? If the why is you're not able to control it in many situations, then at least you know this and you understand, right? Or we had talked about in the past having, students come in if you need student help, or staffing agencies to have them on hand. So looking at that cost in your budget, do I pull in a staff agency, or does my team want the overtime? Because in many cases, what I found is that team members really liked their overtime and wanted it. And I think coming out of the summer months where some of our team members may not have been working a full 40-hour week because our visits were reduced by 50% in most cases, they may want the overtime. So I think looking at all of that and planning for it in your budget, your operational procedures, being creative in how you're going to communicate with your staff, your providers, your patients. What about your patients, Sue? Because we talked a lot about the providers and our staff member, but what about patients?
Well, that's where I want to wrap up, because I think that everywhere we focus, we have to keep patients and families at the center. If we lead with what they need, not necessarily what they want, but what they need, sometimes what they want, we do our practice both economically and our patient and quality care that way. So let's talk a little bit about what this is, right? Because I am the data queen who figures out on the average Monday in January, this is how many sick patients I've seen over the last 4 years, and I sort of figure it out and I put a little cushion in there. Well, none of those numbers are relevant this year. So I'm shooting a dart at the dartboard and hoping, but I got to be flexible and fix that. So I think we don't know, right? Right now, my local school district is, most of the public school districts is distance learning. There's some private schools that are not. But what do we do when they're in maybe November going back and acute illness goes up? And in some places in the country, I know some of my colleagues are being forced to see kids and write notes before they're allowed to come back to school. So this is all going to be shifting. Illness needs, people are scared, so they want to be seen within 2 minutes of being sick. That's not the most appropriate care. Remember, being cared for can be a nurse conversation, a physician message, multiple ways to do this. But I think that we're going to have to be flexible in our scheduling, and the control piece in me wants to put in a telehealth extra time if needed kind of thing that I assign to someone, and if we don't need your volume, you're off, right? Like, or catch up time, or, you know me, I'm the 50-minute hour girl. Well, there may be times where that extra 10 minutes is a telehealth visit. That's not a catch up, right? So building the flexibility in the schedule to give patients what they need. But you're right, we're going to have to talk, and that there might even be a post huddle, like, and not the pre-day at the end. What worked today? What didn't work today? What do we got to adjust for tomorrow? Let's look at what tomorrow looks like.
Every day is going to bring a new lesson. Every day is going to bring a new lesson.
And I like your idea about communicating with families, because I think that, you know how we said the physicians have to say, yes, I'm into the team, and so do the team members. We want to get our families there too. We want to partner with our families to give them the care they need in a safe way. And are you in with us? And how can you help us make sure our community is as healthy and safe as possible? And so some of that may include that they may not see the provider that they thought they were going to see. And we should set that expectation, right? Because if you set expectations, people don't get disappointed as much. That's right? So you may say when you're making the appointment, I'm giving you next Friday at noon a checkup with Dr. Kressly, but remember our policy is if we need to pivot that day, but we can have someone available to care for you, we're going to ask you to open your mind and see someone else. We were talking about this, and I was thinking, you know, when you buy your expensive Broadway tickets to see Hamilton and you're expecting to see Lin-Manuel, and the little voice comes up and says, and standing in tonight for the lead role of Hamilton is the, and you're like, darn. But then occasionally I've actually had this experience on Broadway where there's an up and coming star who I would have never had the opportunity, and I'm like, man, they're talented. We got to watch this person. They're up for greatness. Similarly, my patients who've known me forever, like I'm getting old. Like maybe they meet my youngest partner who just finished training, and they're like, oh, she gets me. She's also got a toddler who won't sleep at night. When Dr. Kressly's like just telling me to let him cry it out, like, what does she know? She doesn't live in there. So I really think that we need to also tell our families that we need them as partners. And then how do you communicate that so that everyone's on the same page? So as an office administrator, like, how do you get that communication out so that everybody's rowing in the same direction and committed to the same goals.
Well, it's funny because when you were talking, I was thinking about this and I thought, how powerful would it be for your practice, for example, if Dr. Kressly came on, there was a YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, whatever it is, there's so many social media platforms now, but you were inspiring your patients and families that we're all in this together. We are your medical home, right? And there are a lot of people in this home that are here to serve you, and we're all in this together, right? Every day is a new day. We're committed to seeing you on time, providing quality care, but that may look a little different for you in this situation as our family that provides, right, care and support for your family is also navigating through this. I think that would be a really creative way to get the message out. I've seen so many practices in my local area that are popping up in my Facebook feed that I've never seen before, doing little dances, pictures of their drive-through flu vaccine clinics. They have t-shirts, like superhero t-shirts on, and it's amazing to see the power and the presence of social media and that we're all in this together. And I think if providers were to get on social media and say, look, this is a new time, I'm here for you, that would really complement the medical home concept, but really this empowerment that we're all in this together. We've got this.
It's about relationships. And then, you ask them, if you're in, we need your thumbs up.
Text message. Are you here?
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
all right.
Great.
This was an awesome conversation. Love having this opportunity to have these speaking from experience conversations. Please, our viewers, take advantage of the little tidbits and pearls. This is going to be a long journey, but we are #BetterTogether. We're in this together. Ask other people how they've solved it. Join conversations, our own physician conversations on the provider listserv and the office manager listserv. Your colleagues have great ideas. If we put the patients and families at the center, we can make sure we give good care and take care of our business. So signing off, have a great week. Thanks, Alisa. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.